If you follow social media, you've probably heard of the March for Science, an event taking place in Washington, D.C. and in several locations around the country. While I'm somebody who is very much in favor of science, I'm not sure how much I support the March for Science, and here's why. A lot of what I've seen coming out of the so-called March for Science is essentially fluff. A lot of people going around saying, I support science, science is good, and while I agree that science is good and science is a good thing, it's a powerful tool for increasing human knowledge and making people's lives better, just saying I support science doesn't really mean much. It makes one ask, what do you mean by science? What do you mean by saying I support science? And also the accusation that people who disagree with your political views are anti-science is something that I kind of take issue with. Even Jerry Coyne, who I talked about in previous videos, said that he wasn't in favor of the March for Science. He looked at the event and said, you know what? This event is essentially fluff. And he also pointed out that it's kind of a problem when one of your major speakers is Bill Nye. Now, moving past what Jerry Coyne had to say, I agree. And I find it very surprising that I would ever say on my YouTube channel that I agree with Jerry Coyne. Bill Nye is held up by a lot of leftists as if he is some kind of scientific authority. But a lot of people don't understand, Bill Nye isn't actually a scientist. He's just an actor who played a scientist on TV 20 years ago. He has a bachelor's in mechanical engineering, however, this doesn't qualify him to speak on most of the scientific issues that he talks about. And by normal use of the English language, someone with a bachelor's degree in engineering isn't considered a scientist. By normal usage of English vocabulary, an engineer is not technically considered to be a scientist. These are usually thought of as two separate categories. From my perspective, having Bill Nye as one of the speakers at this event is a huge problem. After all, Bill Nye has talked before about how he would like to see scientists who don't agree with his views on global warming put in jail.
What's your thought on jailing skeptics as war criminals?
Well, we'll see what happens. Was it appropriate to jail the guys from Enron?
Interesting.
Okay, right, so we'll see what happens.
Bill Nye the fascist guy.
Bill Nye the fascist guy.
Bill Nye accused scientists who don't agree with his views of global warming of being guilty of fraud. Now, this is incredibly ironic considering that just a few years ago, NOAA scientists were caught red-handed fabricating data with regards to global warming. I'll say that climate change and the issues surrounding that topic are things that I'm agnostic about. I'm genuinely unsure. However, from my perspective, if you have to fake data in order to bolster your case, then that really makes me question both your ethics and your integrity and the strength of your case. After all, if someone has a strong case for what they're saying, then they don't need to create fabricated data. Many of those involved in this march were accusing people on the right of being anti-science, all while claiming to be nonpartisan and claiming to be apolitical. I find this ironic considering so often it's people on the left who are screaming out about the evils of GMOs and screaming out about the evils of vaccines. This in spite of the fact that the scientific data does not support their claims. Personally, I think it's unfair to accuse somebody who might not understand these issues or might have questions of being anti-science. After all, science is really about searching for the truth. It's really about looking at the data and finding out what does this support, what does the data indicate, and finding out is there a different way to interpret this data. After all, there have been vaccines in recent history that we thought were good but turned out to have a lot of side effects that we weren't aware of. And so, if this is your kid you're talking about, this is your family you're talking about, people have reasons to have concerns. And I personally think the best way to take care of that isn't name-calling, isn't calling someone anti-science or, attacking somebody ad hominem. It's helping to explain to people more about how GMOs work, helping to explain to people how vaccines work, and helping them to understand that, hey, thimerosal is no longer in vaccines. It never caused autism, but even if it did, it's no longer in the child's vaccines, so you don't have to worry about it. And I think it's also important to help people to start looking to scientists and looking at doctors as people who really will investigate the data, people who won't just believe whatever their professor told them. And also, I think it's important to get the public to start really investigating these things and asking questions in a proper way, in a way that's logical, in a way that is scientific. Even if somebody doesn't have a medical degree or doesn't have a strong scientific background, then that doesn't mean that they can't really think through these issues. It doesn't mean that they're stupid. And that's part of the reason why I create this YouTube channel. I think two of the biggest things we need in this country are academic freedom and more scientific funding. If you have an atmospheric physicist with a PhD, he shouldn't be put in jail simply because Bill Nye doesn't agree with his views. As someone who's pursuing a career in science, I'd ideally like to see a country that values science, that cherishes science, that sees science as an amazing tool for a better future. I'd like to see the United States continue to invest in science, continue to fund scientific research. And I'd also like to see, I want our country to continue to see science as a way to improve human knowledge and improve human lives. After all, science is a major part of how the United States got to where we are today. And while I agree with the march's organizers that science is a powerful tool and it's a good thing, I don't agree that we should stifle debate. After all, it's because of academic freedom that science is possible. If you have it where somebody publishes a paper and other people aren't allowed to criticize it, then we're no longer talking about science, we're talking about dogma. And that's really the disturbing thing when I hear Bill Nye talk about putting scientists in jail simply for disagreeing with him, while ignoring scientists who have committed outright fraud. My ideal, my solution, is teach the public how to better understand science. And teach scientists how to better critically evaluate their own ideas. Because a lot of times I see scientists who will just take what they learn in their classes or take what they've heard from others and accept it uncritically. That might sound arrogant of me to say, but far too often I've seen scientists fall into that trap of basically believing something because it's what all their peers believe. Far too often the scientific community ends up having a herd mentality, ends up believing something because everybody else believes it. And with the critical issues we are facing today, I don't see that as a good thing. I would like to see more critical thinking on part of both the public and the scientific community. And I'd also like to see a lot more of a willingness to hear out colleagues who might hold to a politically incorrect opinion, who might look at the data and see the patterns in a different way. What I'd like to see is more funding going to the natural sciences. I'd like to see our country continue to make that investment. I'd like to see more academic freedom, and I'd like to see more critical thinking. Thank you for watching this video, and please be sure to check out the rest of my videos, share this with your friends, and check out my websites. This is Greg.